Sí. Okay. Bueno. Okay. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this conference. Well, it's my pleasure to present you Professor Marcin Słowik. He is professor at the Faculty of Geography and Geological Sciences in the Adam Mickiewicz University, Poznan in Poland. He's been professor there from 2015. His research interest is in, he has been lead investigator in the following subjects. He led the project Processes Forming Branching and Meandering Rivers, examples of the selected rivers from Wielkopolska lowlands and Transdanubia. Also, he led the project Process Forming Deltas in the Mountain Lakes, example of Solena Kremskie Vessel in Slovakia, and also the project Determine Changes of Riverbed Patterns in the Middle Course of the Obra Valley using analysis of satellite and aerial images and ground penetrating radar methods. Well, as you can see, we started collaborating with, the plan is to start to collaborate with Professor Słowik, that he can give us a perspective of the geological process of rivers. We have the engineering perspective of rivers, controlling rivers, etc. But always we need to consider all the, the behavior and the dynamics of rivers. So we are starting this collaboration with him. We are going to be working next week in the delta of the Mescalapa River, trying to understand the dynamics of the formation of the rivers in the last centuries, trying to understand the river, to see where it comes from and what is the future behavior that it might have. The Professor Słowik got a Fulbright scholarship. He's going to be working more close to us in the South Carolina University. He is going to be working for 9 months, from October of this year to June of next year in the Hungary River, also doing characterization of the behavior of the river, the changes in platform that it has in the present decades, how the impact, how the actions in the basin can affect the river. So, it's my pleasure to present you Professor Słowik. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank for the opportunity to be here to give this talk. I would like to thank Professor Mojżesz Berezowski and Dr. Alejandro Mendoza for the invitation. And yes, my job is my research job is joined with reconstructions, with paleohydrological reconstructions of river planforms in Central Europe, and I would like to share with you some of my research results. My research works mainly joined history of rivers, how rivers looked like hundreds of thousands years ago. And the fact is that most of my research is conducted in areas heavily transformed by hydrotechnical works. So here in my talk, I would like to focus on the influence of various sorts of hydrotechnical works, like construction of channels, like constructions of dams, on changes that take place in river courses, on river planform changes. And the research that I would like to talk about was conducted in Central Europe. I have conducted research in post-glacial areas of Central Europe, namely in the Obra River Valley. The Obra River flows through the western part of Poland, and this is the tributary of a larger river, of the Warta River. In the course of the Obra River, I have conducted research in several locations, but today I'm going to focus on the middle course of the Obra River, that is situated in the Warsaw-Berlin ice marginal valley. In general, ice marginal valleys are a characteristic feature of post-glacial landscapes. They were formed by the melt-out water of the last inland ice, and these huge amounts of the melt-out water formed these enormous valley-like forms. The width of these forms can reach 20, even 30 kilometers. And this valley forms transfers the water along the margin of the inland ice to the North Sea. I also conducted research in the southern part of Central Europe in less areas. Less sediments were formed at the forefront of the inland ice in the Pleistocene. And here I conducted in a cooperation with my colleagues from Hungary, from the University of Pécs, in the area of Hungary. Well, in general, common opinion is that Hungary is a flat and lowland country. This is the truth about the Great Hungarian Place. Yes, this is a flat, enormous flat lowland, but this is not the case of the Transdanubia. Transdanubia is a region of Hungary. This is western and southern part of Hungary. And Transdanubia, in fact, the landscape of Transdanubia comprises of less hills, sets of less hills built of less sediments, and these less hills were eroded during the last several thousand years by waters, also by rivers. So these are two example photographs of a hilly landscapes of Transdanubia. What is more interesting, in the south of Hungary, there are also small mountains. Of course, they cannot be compared to the mountains like in Mexico, but you must remember that Hungary is a lowland country. So there are small mountains in the south of Hungary. They are called Meczek Mountains or Meczek Hills. They are about 600 meters high above the sea level, and they are built of rocks. They are built of rocks, of Triassic rocks. So Hungarian country has many beautiful places. So coming back to rivers, in Hungary, I conducted research in the Sió Valley, which is the tributary of the Danube River, and also in the two small catchments of the Kapos and Kopań valleys. Here you can see example photographs of the Kapos and Kopań valleys. And recently, me and my Hungarian friends conducted research in the lower course of the Drava River, here along the border between Hungary and Croatia. Here you can see a kind of overview of study sites that I investigated. And you can see that most of these sites is heavily transformed by anthropogenic impact, by hydrotechnical works. Here you can see that these rivers, the courses of these rivers were canalized. You know, I was always curious how these rivers may have looked like before the constructions of these canals. So I was always looking for study sites for valley sections where there can be seen remains of channels active before the constructions of these canals. So here you can see this is a section of the middle Obra Valley. You can see traces of distinct paleomeanders. Here you can see a very nice complex sets of paleochannels in the Sió Valley. Complex network of paleomeanders in Kapos and Kopań valleys, And the history of the Drava Valley was different. Its course was not channelized. However, Drava River was heavily transformed by constructions of dams. But despite these works, maybe it cannot be. No, you can see some of paleomeanders. There are tens, if not hundreds, of paleomeanders preserved in the white valley floor of the Drava Valley. So the main issue of my talk is to discuss, to think a bit how these different sorts of hydrotechnical works influence channel planforms, influence river courses. I'm going to talk about this using the examples of the Obra River, of the Hungarian rivers. And here I would like to talk about what may be the role of these reconstructions of river history, reconstructions of river planform changes to be used in planning restoration project, in determining realistic restoration goals. I also would like to talk about the use of historical maps. I would like to show some examples how the historical maps are useful to present the progress of hydrotechnical works, to illustrate changes in land use. I also would like to spend a few moments on a discussion about the potential for restoration of these canalized river courses. I will also use these examples from Poland and Hungary. And I also would like to show you some attempts of restoration actions undertaken in the Drava Valley. Here is a short overview of research methods that I use. In my studies, I used to look for historical maps in bibliotheques, in archives, and so far regarding the rivers in Central Europe, I managed the oldest materials I found originated from the 17th century. During my fieldwork, I use an integrated set of geophysical methods, geological methods, and sediment dating. Regarding geophysical methods, here I must say that GPR, ground penetrating radar, is a very useful tool. This is a non-invasive geophysical technique that allows for imaging sedimentary structures in the subsurface. Here you can see example photo showing the measurement using GPR. You are just dragging behind you a box. You can see the example of the box. This is the antenna that emits the high frequency electromagnetic wave to the ground. So you're just dragging the antenna behind you. The signal goes to central unit that is in the backpack, and you carry a laptop in front of you, so the image can be seen immediately on the laptop. However, later it needs to be processed to eliminate any noises, disturbances. However, a very important thing is to calibrate the GPR signal, the GPR images, using sedimentary data from boreholes and coring. This is very crucial, that solid interpretation of GPR image must be based on sedimentary data. This is very important. Sediment dating is also important because it gives time frames for fluvial events in the past. Also, here grain size analysis are useful because they show, for instance, changes in flow energy in particular sorts of past channel planforms. Okay, so let's go to the history of rivers. I will start with the Middle Obra Valley. This aerial photo shows very nice, distinct paleomeanders, and using the integrated geophysical, geological methods and sediment dating, we have found that these large-scale meanders were active at least 15,000 years ago until about 11,000 years before present, and they were replaced by a multi-channel, ana-branching planform. this anabranching planform consisted from 2 to 5 channels separated by stable alluvial island. This was a low energy system evolving through avulsions. And now this anabranching planform, traces of this multi-channel planform, well, they were not well seen in this aerial photograph. In fact, you can see only traces of one former channels marked by this belt of trees. But here, GPR, ground penetrating radar, proved to be very useful, because we have this is an example line. We have conducted more profile lines here, but this is an example. The measurement conducted along this line indicated the presence of at least 4 channels in the subsurface, and the sedimentary information, the boreholes gave us information that the channels were filled with fine sands, silty sands, pits, and silts. And this multi-channel platform was active until the beginning of the 19th century, when the artificial canals were constructed. So here where historical maps are useful. Here you can see an example of a map from 1828, and here you can see that at that time a part of the multi-channel platform river was still active, and significant part of the artificial canal was constructed. Okay, so what happened to the Obra River during the last 200 years? In the beginning of the 19th century, the river was multi-channel, anabranching, but at that time the hydrotechnical works started. There were huge hydrotechnical works, and less than 30 years later, 2 straight canals, artificial canals, were already built. And then throughout the remaining times of the 19th century and throughout the 20th century, the situation was looking even worse, because the 3rd canal was constructed, and the land use was changed by constructions of a dense network of drainage ditches. So the main goal of these huge constructions was to get rid the water out of this area, to get rid of the excess of water. So these canals served as a kind of highways, of motorways, to get the excess of water as quickly from this area as possible. This was done. This huge riverine wetland was transformed into an agricultural area. What happened to Hungarian rivers? Here you can see a reconstruction of the meandering course for these 2 small catchments in Les Hills, Kapos and Kopani rivers. We have found that this was meandering river during the last at least 14,000 years, with a short period of meander cutoffs about 12,000 years ago. And then this was a low energy meandering platform in the Holocene. Here you can see an example of a very specific elongate meanders. This is characteristic for low energy meandering system. And this example, ground penetrating radar image, shows that first, the paleochannels are filled at the base with silts. So not with gravels, not with medium sands, not with coarse sands, but with silts. This also speaks for the low energy of this meandering system. These meanders were active until about 4,000 years before present. And the floodplain is built of fines, of silts, sandy silts. In fact, this is redeposited less. This is the fines eroded from the Les Hills and deposited in the valley floor. In general, this is the basic difference between the post-glacial river valleys and less river valleys, because post-glacial rivers in post-glacial areas accumulate relatively large amounts of gravels, coarse sands, medium sands, fine sands, sand material in general. rivers evolving in less landscapes accumulate fines, silts, sandy silts. Okay, so let's look what what humans did to the Kaposh and Kopan valleys. As I said, starting from 11,000 years ago, the channel planform was low energy meandering, but humans appeared in this area at least 7,000 years ago. And they started to cut the forests and burn the forests to make areas for first agricultural lands. So when this deforestation proceeded, the runoff increased and the accumulation of fines increased in the valley floor. And the burning of the forests is evidenced by the presence of charcoals, small charcoals in the floodplain sediments. So about 4,000 years ago, also one more thing changed. The climate got more humid and with more precipitation about 4,000 years ago in this area, and the river was transformed owing to coupled influence of humans and climate change to a riverine wetland. These low energy meanders were choked with fines. The river just stopped flowing and turned into wetland. When you look at this map, we have found that there were no paleomeanders across the whole valley floor younger than 4,000 years ago. So we hypothesized that this river just stopped flowing 4,000 years ago. And the purpose of the construction of these artificial canals was the same as in the case of the Obra Valley, to get rid of the excess of water. So they just excavated the canals and let the water go down, and the river was transformed. The riverine wetland was transformed into agricultural area. Regarding the Shio Valley, this work was really fascinating, I must tell you, because here we found sets of at least 3 different channel planforms. Here you can see an outline of a very large paleomeander, and we have found that these paleomeanders were active at least 20,000 years ago until about 18,000 years before present. And they were replaced by multi-channel ana-branching planform, the traces of which can be seen here. This was a very specific type of ana-branching planform because it was characterized with a meandering, characterized by meandering ana-branches. Here you can see traces of a lateral migration of these channels shown by GPR image. And this planform was active until 13,000 years ago, until replaced by small-scale meanders, and traces of these small-scale meanders can be seen here between these 2 artificial canals. So here again, historical maps appear to be a very useful tool. The map from the 18th century shows that the Shio Canal was under construction. Part of this canal was ready, while part of the small-scale meanders were still active. 100 years later, in the 19th century, 2 artificial canals are ready. And what is more important here, a significant change of land use. In the 18th century, these signatures show wetlands and patches of riverine forest. And in the 19th century, you can see here that there are agricultural lands and also single drainage ditches. Regarding the lower Drava Valley, we currently work on a paper aiming to reconstruct the history of fluvial events during the last 12,000 years, at least. So far, we have found at least 3 styles of meandering. in the history of the Drava Valley. This future paper is under preparation. Here you can see a nice example of almost symmetrical paleomeander cut off by neck cutoff about 3,000 years ago, with a nice sequence of point bars preserved in the modern floodplain surface. So this is historical background, what happened in the late glacial and in Holocene. But here I would like to focus on events that changed the course of the Drava Valley during the last 200 years. So what happened here? First, the meandering course was straightened at the turn of the 19th and 20th of the 18th and 19th century. Huge hydrotechnical works were started here, and again here historical maps illustrate the progress of the channel straightening. So as a result, the channel planform was transformed from meandering to a sinuous planform with channel bars. And it is also worth to say that the riverbed incised, because when the channel was straightened, then the slope of the river increased. The riverbed incised and eroded its bed and banks, and that's why several channel bars appeared in the river course. This is also evidenced by sets of historical maps. Then what happened later? This sinuous course with channel bars existed until dam constructions. The first of the dam was constructed here in 1958, and less than 20 years after this first construction, the planform was changed from the sinuous with channel bars to anabranching, to multi-channel anabranching, characterized with one incised channel, several side channels, and large alluvial islands. Why did it happen? This happened because the dams altered the hydrological regime of this river. The construction of dams caused that high flows became less frequent and periods of low flows became longer. So as a result, the surfaces of the channel bars became exposed over the water surface for a longer time, for time long enough to get colonized by vegetation. Vegetation stabilized the bar, and they enlarged with the time. So the present river planform is anabranching. Let's have a look how the case of the Drava Valley looks against the background of other rivers affected by dam closure from various parts of the world. So here in general, the basic importance is connected with sediment budget. So in general, the rivers characterized by sediment deficit are characterized by incised river course and formation of the anabranching planforms, because as I said, the surfaces of channel bars are exposed and colonized by vegetation. So except for the lower Drava, lower Vistula river is also of similar type of river planform downstream of a dam. If this process of incision continues, then the alluvial islands become merged with the floodplain, and the planform turns into a single incised channel with traces of former alluvial islands attached to the floodplain. This is the case of some French rivers and Italian rivers. There are also examples of rivers that indicate sediment surplus conditions after dam closure, but these are relatively rare cases. This happens to the Sabine River and to the Green River, but this river can compensate the loss of sediments caused by dam closure, because of course dams block upstream sediment delivery, and these rivers compensate this loss of sediment delivery by resources from their floodplains and from their tributaries. But these are rare cases. And also important thing are hydrotechnical works that took place before the constructions of the dams. Here, an interesting case is represented by the central Platte River, which was altered by huge irrigation works that lowered the amount of water conveyed by this river. And then, after the dam construction, this huge braided system was transformed in a very specific branching system. This river has huge resources of sediments in its valley floor, but it has no water. This water was used for irrigation purposes and by dam constructions. So, of course, this framework should be developed by further examples, and in my opinion, we should think about the case of the Samaria and Carizal River. This is a very unique case, in my opinion, of rivers evolving through avulsions that are influenced by dam closure. This framework may be extended by this new interesting case. Okay, so now, having in mind all this information, river history, sequences of channel planform changes, the timing of these changes, the way of human-induced actions. Now, we should ask a very important and very difficult question: what possibilities we have to conduct restoration of these river valleys? So let's have a look at the trajectory of the channel planform changes. If we don't know nothing, if we know nothing about the history of rivers, and look at, I will go back to this photograph, and look at this aerial photo, it is very tempting to restore these beautiful meanders. It would be very nice to have them back alive. It would be very aesthetic element of the landscape. But having data about the age of these meanders and functioning of these meanders, we know that this river system was active thousands of years ago. We know that these paleomeanders conveyed flows that are 10 to even 20 times larger than the modern flow. And these ancient meanders were active under completely different climate and vegetation conditions than the modern conditions. So this is not realistic. This is not realistic. Another question is it possible then to restore this multi-channel planform? It was active just 200 years ago. So let's now consider a few scenarios. The first scenario is that we reconstruct a small section of this river. We excavate a few channels. And I must say, this is unlikely that such a process would be successful, because if we only excavate a few canals without restoring water supply and sediment supply, this project will not be successful. We must keep in mind that many branching multi-channel systems are characterized by high sediment flows, by high upstream sediment delivery, exceeding transportation possibilities of its riverbeds. So they evolve through avulsions. Not all maybe branching systems, but some of them, yes. So without restoring sediment delivery conditions and flow conditions, this would not be realistic. Now, okay, let's think maybe we should then reconstruct a large section of the Middle Obra Valley or the whole Middle Obra Valley. But this is also doubtful, because such undertaking would be very cost effective, and this would trigger a number of other issues, like economical issues, like legal issues regarding, for example, land ownership. This is agricultural land used by people, used by farmers, that how we should transform it back to the wetlands. On the other hand, option do nothing makes no sense, because the problem is that the canals and drainage ditches get silted, and there is a very big problem. There's lack of water in this area. I must tell you, when I went for a field research to the Obra Valley 15 years ago, it was impossible to go there in April, in spring, in melt-out season, because all this land was inundated. Now, without a problem, you can go for field research in March, in April. The groundwater level is 50 centimeters or even 1 meter below the land surface. So we have less and less water, and these highways to getting rid the excess of water are still active. So in my opinion, at least what should be done in this area is to eliminate these drainage ditches, to bury these drainage ditches to keep the water in this area. You know, when a high precipitation event comes to this area, then okay, we have flood. This area is inundated, but this highways for getting the excess of water rid of this area, they work. The water goes quickly through these canals, and after 2-3 weeks, we have drought again. We have again low groundwater levels. So I think that restoration actions must be also focused on caring for the water, collection of water. So this now becomes a problem in areas that were, this is not a dryland zone, this is temperate zone, and we have these problems bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, there is practically no actions to change this situation. At least eliminate the drainage ditches, and perhaps also construct some storage reservoirs to save the water that appears here during the high precipitation events. Here you can see examples of the modern artificial canals. Here you can see the North Obra Canal. This is the largest of the canals. It's relatively well kept. They clean the canal regularly. They cut the vegetation. But this is not the case of the South Obra Canal. This is the smallest of the canal, and you can see it is completely blocked with vegetation in vegetation season. So these canals actually have stopped playing their role. There is no more wetlands. There is no excess of water. So the question is if they are still useful. Here, there are also big problems in Hungary. Here you can see example photos of two canals, the Kapos Canal and Sio Canal. Here you can see traces of intensive erosion of the banks of the canals. In general, all the canals are incised, as you can see. This is the effect of a large floods. There are large floods in the area of South Hungary, brought by huge precipitation events coming from south and southwest from the Mediterranean Sea. And after such an event, the whole valley floor is inundated. And remember, I told you that the valley floor is built of redeposited less, because they are cohesive sediments. So the infiltration to the ground is close to zero. So the water stands on the land surface. Moreover, there are, I don't have the photos, but there are sluice gates on the Kapos Canal, and local authorities, when the flood comes, local authorities close the sluice gates to prevent the flooding for the areas situated downstream. So as a result, this is the result of the flood in 2010. The whole valley floor was under the water, and what was the tragic result? The agricultural lands are destroyed. Here you can see, I hope this can be seen, these are remains of a corn field. Corn was totally destroyed. Constructions of these small canals, this is not an organized action. Sometimes these are private actions. Farmers just dig such canals, again, to get the water rid out of this area. So in fact, the constructions of canals didn't help very much. So these are really big problems, both in Poland and Hungary. Here, I would like to show you an example of attempts to restore the side channels in the Drava Valley. Here you can see again the modern course of the Drava Valley altered by dam constructions. So one main incised channel, side channels, and alluvial islands. So the main channel incises and the side channels are filled with, with sediment. They become inactive. So about 10 years ago, local authorities decided to excavate some of the side channels to make space for the excess of water during the floods. This is the result. This photo was taken about 4 years after this excavation. The channel is filled back with sediments. So again, it's not enough just to excavate the canal, the channel. We need to restore flow conditions and sediment delivery conditions. If we restore sediment delivery conditions, then perhaps these main channels will stop incising. Then the excavation of the side channel will make more sense. And we need to restore the amount of water. However, this is very difficult because Drava is blocked by several dams situated in the area of Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, and Croatia. So this would be a very difficult issue. Perhaps some integrated action between these dams to increase the amount of water would be a good idea, because the Drava, the lower Drava, is suffering recently with very long periods of droughts, of very low water levels. Regarding sediment resources, the valley floor has about 10, even more than 10 kilometers of width. So, and it has huge resources of sediments. So potential resources for sediment delivery are there. So this attempt to activate this channel was unfortunately unsuccessful. Okay, to conclude my talk here, I wanted to show you the importance, the potential for reconstructions of past channel planforms, potential for being used in restoration projects. I also showed you a few examples of historical maps and their importance for the knowledge about the progress of hydrotechnical works, of changes in land use. And when working on reconstructions, on history of rivers, it's worth to use a variety of methods, various sorts of methods. It gives quite good results and allows to create quite detailed information about the history of rivers, and reaction and restoration actions must be process-based. We should not think only about excavations of channels, but reconstruction of processes and basic things, taking care for water, because we have less and less water. We must save the water. This work was the effect of my this is not all results, but these results come from my two projects realized during the last 10 years. Here again, I would like to thank very much Professor Berezowski and Dr. Mendoza for invitation, and I would like also to thank my university, because my arrival here in Stay Hill was possible to obtaining a small grant from my university. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Some questions, please.
I have two questions. One is, what do you call low energy meanders?
Oh, I call, yes, maybe I didn't say it exactly here. Low energy meandering rivers are rivers with low stream power. So the ability to carry sediment and waters actually, oh, this is not this slide, actually, these Kaposh and Kopani rivers have the energy of flow stream powers like 0.5 watt for square meter. Yes, this is the definition.
Okay. The second question is like this. Do you, according to your experience, when they do some work, restoration works or any kind of works on river, the people that is doing those works give enough importance to sediment or just to the hydraulic part of the river? The authorities, for instance,
to my knowledge, the level of information given to local authorities in Poland and in Hungary is very low. Is inadequate. So, unfortunately, there is no talking about restoration projects and restoration works in Poland. There are some attempts in Hungary, but as I said, they are featured with too low level of real scientific information. This is my opinion. I would like to say that there were also some attempts for restoration works done in Poland, done by companies that constructed motorways. Because now there are such legal rules that such a company is obliged to, when they build a highway, then they are obliged to restore a river course. But okay, they constructed artificial meanders for one or two small streams, and that's it, without earlier research. So this is just pro forma. Yes. This is how I see it.
Well, I don't know if there's more questions. Well, I have one question related to also to restoration. Well, restorations at the end have a positive impact, I mean, for the system, but I think sometimes it's difficult for we as scientists and engineers to make the authorities, the government, see what are the benefits of restoration. For example, in your case, could you like highlight what are the points, the positive points? If, for example, if we were the government, what will be the positive points that you can like highlight of restorations in these areas that you were mentioning?
Well, what highlights should be shown to the authorities? What main points? I think well, in my opinion, what strategy would be good? It would be good to give a visit to authorities after a flood or after a drought period and tell them, look what happened. You can change it if you start collecting the water or start building storage reservoirs for water. This may be not good strategy because something must happen first, yes, then we act. This is not good at all. But unfortunately, the logics I'm saying about some authorities of Central Europe, of Poland and Hungary, unfortunately, the logic of some local authorities is such that I'm not sure if arguments before something happens get to them. Unfortunately, I heard rather negative reactions and negative decisions. So I know situations that in some districts authorities think rather of constructions of new canals than burying this. So So maybe such thing would help.
No sé si hay preguntas en línea. No. Okay. No, we don't have online questions. So, well,
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. Also, thank you to the people that attended online. So
thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much again. It was a pleasure to give this talk and to. And I'm happy to be with you because I have waited a long time to arrive here. It was stopped by the pandemic situation, so it finally happened. So thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bueno, gracias. Y también gracias, bueno, también al equipo que nos estuvo apoyando, al equipo de Amalia García y Alejandro Morales, que nos estuvieron apoyando en todo esto. También al equipo del ingeniero Abriz. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Okay.